A busy afternoon in the heart of small-town America. The day had dragged on, the kind where the scorching summer heat made the grease cling to your skin like a second layer. I was wedged under a rusty old Ford, the kind of job that turned your back into a knot and left your hands permanently reeking of oil. That's when I heard it, the unmistakable sputter of an engine giving up the ghost, followed by a sharp, panicked voice slicing through the stillness. "Hello? Is anyone here?" Sliding out from under the car, I grabbed a rag to wipe my hands on my already oil-stained overalls. Standing in the doorway was someone who clearly didn't belong here, a young woman, her polished appearance starkly out of place against the grimy backdrop of my garage. Her high heels clicked nervously on the cracked concrete as she approached. "My car broke down," she said, gesturing to a sleek, jet-black coupe that was haphazardly parked at the curb. Its glossy finish was a glaring contrast to the weathered surroundings, much like its owner. "You've come to the right place," I said, keeping my tone even while the oddity of the situation didn't escape me. "Pop the hood and I'll take a look." She hesitated, glancing at her phone as if she had somewhere more important to be. "Can you fix it quickly? I'm on a tight schedule." "We'll see what's going on first," I replied, grabbing my tools and stepping toward the car. As I peered under the hood, it didn't take long to figure out the problem. Nearly a dry radiator and a couple of loose connections. I explained the issues to her, but her blank stare told me everything I needed to know about her knowledge of cars. "Can you fix it or not?" she asked, biting her lip, her impatience bleeding into her voice. "I can," I said, stifling a grin, "but it'll take a couple of hours." She let out a groan, pacing in those impractical heels before conceding. "Fine. I'll wait." Her irritation was almost tangible, but I focused on the job. By the time I finished, the sun had dipped low, painting the sky in soft oranges and purples. She was leaning against the wall, engrossed in her phone. "All done," I announced, wiping my hands on a rag as I stood. Relief washed over her face as she straightened up. "Finally. Thank you." "How much do I owe you?" she asked, her voice brisk. I gave her a modest number, fair for the work I'd done. She blinked, then reached into her designer bag, pulling out a thick wad of cash. "Keep the change," she said curtly, handing me far more than I'd asked for. "That's too much," I started to protest, but she was already walking away, heels clicking with purpose as she headed to her car. "Consider it a tip," she called over her shoulder before sliding into the driver's seat. The roar of the engine echoed down the quiet street, fading into the evening air. I shook my head, tucking the cash into my pocket. Generous or strange? Maybe both. I didn't dwell on it much. By the time the sun had fully set, I was settled on my worn-out couch, a cold beer in one hand and the game playing on TV. That's when I heard the knock, sharp, deliberate, and entirely out of place this late at night. Setting down my drink, I opened the door to find a man in a crisp black suit standing on my porch, an envelope in hand. "Mr. Coleman?" he asked, his voice professional but distant. Yeah," I replied, already wary. "Who's asking?" He held out the envelope, his movements precise. "I'm here on behalf of Miss Evelyn Harper." The name didn't register until he added, "The woman whose car you repaired earlier today." I frowned. "Is something wrong with the car?" I told her everything should be running fine now. "It's not about the repair," he said, his tone unreadable. "Miss Harper would like to thank you personally. She's unconventional in how she does that." I glanced at the envelope, my gut twisting. This didn't feel like a simple thank you. "Can I come in?" the man asked, gesturing slightly. Hesitating, I stepped aside and waved him in. He moved with the confidence of someone used to high-stakes deals and glass-walled boardrooms, not the faded wallpaper and second-hand furniture of my tiny living room. "Make yourself comfortable," I said, my voice tinged with sarcasm. He didn't sit. Instead, he handed me the envelope with the same calm professionalism that made the whole situation feel surreal. The man extended the envelope toward me. "Miss Harper instructed me to deliver this to you personally. She believes in rewarding those who go above and beyond." I took the envelope, my rough, grease-stained hands brushing against the smooth, expensive paper. Hesitation gnawed at me, but I opened it cautiously. Inside was a check. My heart skipped a beat as I stared at the amount. $100,000? "You've got to be kidding me," I muttered, my voice barely audible. "This has to be a mistake." "No mistake," the man assured me, his tone calm and deliberate. "Miss Harper has her reasons." "What reasons?" I asked, suspicion curling in my chest. "I fixed her car, not her entire life." He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "She's a very private person, but let's just say she values acts of kindness, especially from those who expect nothing in return." I stared at the check, feeling its weight despite how impossibly light it was. $50,000, more money than I had ever seen, let alone held in my hands. My mind raced. This could clear my debts, fix up the shop, maybe even let me dream beyond the daily grind. But it felt unreal. There's a catch, I said, my voice tinged with doubt. There has to be. No catch, the man replied smoothly. It's a gift. Pure and simple. I didn't believe him, not entirely. People like her didn't just throw around money without a reason. Still, I slipped the check back into the envelope, doing my best to keep my thoughts in check. Well, I said, forcing a lightness into my tone, if she's looking for more car repairs, she knows where to find me. The man gave a polite nod, his movements precise. Enjoy your evening, Mr. Coleman. And take care. As he left, I stood in the doorway, the envelope heavy in my hands, the whole encounter playing on a loop in my mind. The next day, I was still trying to wrap my head around what had happened when another surprise rolled up. A sleek black SUV pulled to a stop outside my shop. The door opened and out stepped Evelyn Harper herself. This time, there was no sign of the frazzled woman from before. She was polished and composed, radiating confidence with every step. For a moment, I froze, her presence commanding the kind of attention you couldn't ignore. Miss Harper, I said, wiping my hands on a rag, feeling the oil and grime smear into the fabric. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. She smiled faintly, her demeanor as cool as the breeze cutting through the warm afternoon. Call me Evelyn, she said. And I thought it was only fair to thank you in person. I glanced at the SUV, then back at her. Didn't your lawyer already handle that? She laughed softly, the sound disarming. He did. But I believe gratitude is best expressed face to face. There was something in her tone, sincere yet measured, that left me off balance. This wasn't just about the check or the repair. Something bigger was at play, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She stood there, every inch the picture of a polished CO, her confidence radiating like the midday sun. I wiped my hands on a grease-streaked rag, trying to mask my unease. Miss Harper, I said, attempting to keep my tone steady. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. Call me Evelyn, she replied, a faint smile playing on her lips. I wanted to thank you in person. I raised an eyebrow, the memory of the lawyer's visit fresh in my mind. Didn't your lawyer already take care of that? She laughed softly, a disarming sound that caught me off guard. I suppose he did. But I believe gratitude is best expressed face to face. Her sincerity, or at least what felt like it, threw me. She stepped closer, her eyes sweeping over my shop, every cracked wall, rusty tool, and threadbare corner of it. This is your business? She asked, her tone tinged with curiosity. For better or worse, I replied with a shrug. Mostly worse these days. Her expression softened, and for a moment I thought she might actually feel sorry for me. You're good at what you do, she said thoughtfully. You could charge twice as much and people would still come to you. Not around here, I countered. People don't have that kind of money. Evelyn nodded, as if she understood more than she let on. What if I told you I could change that, not just for you but for this whole neighborhood? I frowned, her words setting off alarm bells in my head. What are you talking about? She smiled, enigmatic and poised, like someone used to being a step ahead. I have a proposal, but it's not something we can discuss here. Are you free for dinner tonight? Dinner? I repeated, unsure whether to feel flattered or suspicious. I don't usually mix business with food. Then consider it a favor, she replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. Pick me up at 8. I'll text you the address. And just like that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me standing in the doorway, rag in hand, staring after her in disbelief. The rest of the day passed in a haze. By the time I pulled my old truck into the lot of the upscale restaurant Evelyn had chosen, my nerves were shot. My beat-up vehicle looked like a fish out of water next to the gleaming luxury cars that dotted the valet stand. Inside, Evelyn was waiting at a private table, dressed to the nines and exuding the same effortless confidence she had earlier. She looked entirely at ease, as though this was just another routine part of her day. You clean up nicely, she said with a hint of amusement as I sat down, still feeling out of place. Thanks, I replied gruffly, tugging at the collar of my only decent shirt. She didn't waste time with small talk. You're probably wondering why I'm doing all this. The thought crossed my mind, I admitted, my tone guarded. She leaned forward, her expression softening but her eyes sharp. Let's just say I see potential in you, in this shop, and in what it could mean for the community. I'd like to help you realize it. Her words hung in the air, heavy with possibilities I wasn't sure I was ready to face. She was waiting at a private table, dressed impeccably, her confidence radiating effortlessly. As I slid into the seat opposite her, she offered a small, amused smile. "You clean up nicely," she said, her eyes sparkling with a hint of mischief. "Thanks," I replied, my voice gruff. I tugged at my shirt collar, feeling completely out of place in the upscale setting. Like a fish in a tuxedo, I thought. Evelyn wasted no time with pleasantries. "You're probably wondering why I'm doing all this." The thoughts crossed my mind, I admitted, trying to read her. Her polished exterior didn't match the story I assumed she'd tell next. She leaned forward, her expression growing serious. "I grew up in a place like this, tight-knit but struggling. People looked out for each other, but they didn't have much. My dad was a mechanic like you. He taught me the value of hard work and, more importantly, the importance of paying it forward." I stared at her, trying to reconcile the poised, commanding woman in front of me with the humble story she was sharing. "And you think handing me a check is paying it forward?" I asked, skepticism lacing my tone. She smiled faintly, undeterred. "That was just the beginning. I want to invest in you, your shop, your skills. Together we could build something bigger, something that helps this entire community." Her words hung in the air, heavy with promise. It felt like she had just handed me the keys to a kingdom I wasn't sure I deserved. "Invest in me?" I repeated, as if saying it out loud might make the idea more believable. Evelyn nodded, her gaze unwavering. "You have talent, Marcus. But more than that, you have integrity. Those qualities are rare. I see potential, not just in your work but in what you could do for this community if you had the right support." "Why me?" I asked, still trying to make sense of her interest. "There are better mechanics out there, bigger shops." She raised a hand, cutting off my doubts before they could take root. "I didn't choose you because you're the best mechanic in the world. I chose you because you're the kind of person who would fix a stranger's car without trying to fleece them for every penny. That's the kind of person I want to work with." Her words struck a chord, silencing the voice in my head that had been bracing for a catch. For the first time, I allowed myself to entertain the possibility that this wasn't just some elaborate joke. Maybe it was real. Maybe she believed in me in a way I hadn't dared to believe in myself. I didn't know what to say. A part of me wanted to seize the opportunity with both hands, to believe that something this incredible could actually happen. But another part of me, the part shaped by years of struggle and disappointment, couldn't help but wonder if this was some kind of elaborate joke. "What's the catch?" I finally asked, my voice wary. Evelyn's lips curved into a faint smile. "No catch. Just hard work and a shared vision. If you're interested, we'll draw up the paperwork and get started." "And if I'm not?" I pressed, still skeptical. "Then you keep the check. No strings attached," she said, leaning back in her chair. "But something tells me you won't walk away from this." She wasn't wrong. I didn't walk away. Over the next few days, Evelyn laid out her plan with meticulous precision. She wanted to expand my shop, bring in state-of-the-art equipment, and launch training programs for local kids eager to learn a trade. It sounded too good to be true, but the more she spoke, the more I started to believe in her vision. This wasn't charity. It was a partnership. Evelyn had a clear strategy and she wanted me to be at the heart of it. By the end of the week, I'd sign the paperwork. The transformation began almost immediately. The first thing Evelyn did was bring in a team to renovate the shop. Watching them tear down the old, rusted walls and replace them with sleek, modern panels felt surreal. It was like watching my life being rebuilt, piece by piece. Evelyn was there every day, overseeing the project with a kind of determination that left no room for doubt. One afternoon, as we stood in the middle of the construction site, surrounded by the sounds of drills and hammers, she turned to me. "You're not just fixing cars anymore," she said, her tone steady but filled with purpose. "You're building a legacy." Her words stayed with me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself. The shop was no longer just a place to work. It was becoming a cornerstone of the community, a symbol of what could be achieved with the right support and a shared dream. Not everyone was thrilled about the changes. Some of the local mechanics saw me as a sellout and didn't hesitate to let me know it. "You think you're better than us now?" one of them sneered as he strolled into the shop one day, his tone dripping with disdain. "I think I'm trying to do something different," I replied evenly, keeping my voice calm even as my fists itched to clench. "Yeah, with her money," he shot back, jerking his thumb toward Evelyn, who was deep in conversation with one of the contractors across the room. Before I could respond, Evelyn stepped in, her tone icy enough to cut through the tension. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her words sharp and deliberate. The guy mumbled something under his breath and shuffled out, clearly unwilling to take her on. "You don't have to fight my battles for me," I said once he was gone, still trying to shake off the encounter. "I know," she replied, her voice softening. "But I'm not going to stand by and let anyone undermine what we're building here." As the shop began to take shape, so did my life. For the first time in years, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just treading water. But progress brought its own set of challenges. Evelyn's frequent presence didn't go unnoticed, and soon the whispers started. People speculated about our relationship, questioning whether there was more to it than just business. At first, I ignored the rumors, brushing them off as idle gossip. But when one of my oldest friends confronted me about it, the frustration bubbled over. "You think I'm doing this for personal gain?" I snapped, unable to keep the irritation out of my voice. "You think I'd put everything on the line for a paycheck?" "I don't know what to think," he admitted, his tone hesitant but sincere. "But people are talking, and it's not just about the shop." I knew exactly what he meant, but I wasn't about to dignify the rumors with a response. Instead, I poured myself into the work, determined not to let anything distract me from what mattered. Building something real, something lasting. Evelyn, for her part, seemed utterly unfazed by the whispers. She carried on with the same confidence and focus as always, her actions speaking louder than any gossip ever could. And while the rumors lingered in the background, I decided to follow her lead. After all, the work we were doing was bigger than the noise around it. Evelyn, as always, seemed completely unfazed by the gossip. "Let them talk," she said one evening when I finally brought it up. "People are always going to find something to complain about." Her confidence was reassuring, but it didn't make the whispers any easier to ignore. Still, I took her words to heart, channeling my energy into the project. I was determined to prove the naysayers wrong. The grand reopening of the shop was set for 3 months later. As the date approached, I found myself working harder than ever, pushing myself to the limit to make sure every detail was perfect. Evelyn was right there with me, her energy seemingly endless. "You're going to make this place a beacon for the community," she said one night as we locked up. Her voice was steady, filled with a conviction I wasn't sure I shared yet. "I can feel it." The day of the grand reopening arrived like a storm, buzzing with excitement and tension. The shop, once a rusty, run-down shell, now stood as a gleaming facility. State-of-the-art tools filled the workstations, and the waiting area was more inviting than most cafes. Evelyn had even envisioned and created a dedicated space for community classes, something I hadn't thought possible just months before. The neighborhood turned out in force. People gathered outside, curious and skeptical, murmurs of doubt and anticipation mixing in the air. When Evelyn handed me the oversized scissors for the ribbon-cutting ceremony, I almost laughed. "This is your moment, Marcus," she said quietly, her voice steady and encouraging. Taking a deep breath, I cut the ribbon. Cheers and applause erupted around me, but as I scanned the crowd, I noticed a few familiar faces, the ones not clapping, their eyes cold with skepticism. The first weeks after the reopening were a whirlwind. Business picked up almost immediately, and the training program for local kids became an instant hit. Watching those young faces light up as they learned to work with their hands reminded me of my own start in the trade. It was gratifying to see the shop not just survive, but thrive as a cornerstone of the community. Yet, amidst the triumph, I couldn't shake the occasional glances of doubt from a few holdouts in the crowd. Their skepticism wasn't gone, but for the first time I realized it didn't matter. The work we were doing spoke louder than any doubt ever could. Watching the kids learn to work with their hands reminded me of myself when I first discovered my passion for fixing things. It was a joy to see their excitement and pride as they mastered new skills. But not everything was smooth sailing. Some of my old rivals in the area were growing more aggressive. They started spreading rumors that I'd sold out to corporate greed or that Evelyn was using me as a pawn in some hidden agenda. The tension came to a head one evening when I found the side of the shop vandalized. Bold red letters screamed the word traitor across the freshly painted wall. Evelyn arrived just as I was scrubbing the paint off. Her expression hardened the moment she saw the damage. "Who did this?" she asked, her tone like ice. "I don't know," I admitted, scrubbing harder. "But it doesn't matter. I'll handle it." "It does matter," she said firmly. "This isn't just about you anymore. This is about what we're building, and I won't let anyone tear it down." True to her word, Evelyn didn't let it go. By the end of the week, she'd hired a security company to monitor the property and insisted on installing cameras around the shop. "It's overkill," I argued, but she just shook her head. "Marcus," she said, her voice unwavering, "when you're trying to make real change, you're going to upset people. It's not overkill, it's preparation." Her determination was unshakable, and I couldn't help but admire her for it. But as the tension continued to grow, I started to question everything. Was all of this worth it? One night, as we were locking up the shop, Evelyn turned to me, reading the thoughts I hadn't yet spoken aloud. "You're doubting yourself," she said simply. "I'm doubting a lot of things," I admitted. "But mostly I'm wondering why you're still here. You don't need this." She looked at me, her expression softening. "Maybe I do," she said quietly. "My father used to tell me that the only way to make your life matter is to leave the world better than you found it. This is my way of doing that." Her words struck a chord, cutting through my doubt like a beam of light in a dark room. Evelyn wasn't just here for a project or a return on investment. She was here for something bigger, for purpose, for legacy. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what I needed too. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time, I realized how deeply personal this was for her. Evelyn wasn't just helping me rebuild a shop. She was building something that carried the weight of her own values, her own past. A week later, things took an uglier turn when one of the rival mechanics, a guy named Derek, showed up at the shop with two of his friends. "You think you're better than us now?" he spat, his voice loud enough to turn every head in the shop. I stepped outside, keeping my posture relaxed, but my mind was braced for trouble. "I'm not better than anyone, Derek. I'm just trying to run my business." "Your business?" he scoffed. "This isn't your business anymore, it's hers." He jabbed a finger toward the office where Evelyn was meeting with a supplier. "Watch your mouth," I said, my voice low and steady. "Or what?" Derek sneered, stepping closer. Before I could respond, Evelyn appeared at the door. She looked calm, but her presence was commanding enough to make Derek pause. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice cool but sharp. Derek faltered for a moment before recovering his bravado. "Yeah, there's a problem. People around here don't like what you're doing." "People?" she repeated, one eyebrow raised. "Or just you?" The tension was thick, and I stepped in before things could escalate further. "We're done here," I said firmly. "If you've got something to say, Derek, you can say it to me. Leave her out of it." Derek glared at me, his eyes dark with anger, but eventually, he muttered a few curses under his breath and left with his friends in tow. After they were gone, Evelyn turned to me. "That's not going to be the last time someone tries to intimidate you." "I can handle it," I said, though I wasn't sure if I was trying to convince her or myself. "I know you can," she replied, her voice soft but resolute. "But you don't have to do it alone." Her words stayed with me. She wasn't just talking about Derek or the shop, she was talking about all of it. The vision we were building, the challenges we'd face, the change we were trying to create. For the first time, I started to see it not as my battle but as ours. As the months passed, the shop transformed into a cornerstone of the community. We hosted free repair clinics, helped struggling families keep their cars running, and gave local kids the opportunity to learn skills that could change their futures. Evelyn's vision was coming to life, and I was proud to be a part of it. But success came with a price. The whispers of resentment grew louder, the skepticism more biting. For every life we helped improve, there seemed to be someone who believed we were trying to overshadow them. I started to wonder if the cost of this dream might be too high. One quiet evening as I locked up the shop, the streets seemed unusually still. A chill ran down my spine and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Turning toward my truck, I saw them, 3 figures stepping out of the shadows. Derek was in front, his posture full of menace. "Working late, huh?" Derek sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "What do you want?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "To remind you where you came from," he said, closing the distance between us. "You think you're some big shot now? Her money backing you up?" "Walk away, Derek," I warned. He laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Or what? You gonna call your fancy CO to come save you?" My pulse hammered in my ears as I clenched my fists, trying to keep my cool. "I don't need anyone to save me, but I won't fight you, not here, not now." "That's what I thought," he said mockingly, stepping back. But before he disappeared into the night, he threw one last threat over his shoulder. "This isn't over, Daniels, not by a long shot." The next day, I told Evelyn about the confrontation. As soon as I finished, she was pacing my office, her fury palpable. "This has gone too far," she said, her voice sharp with frustration. "I can handle Derek," I assured her, though even I wasn't entirely convinced. "It's not just Derek," she countered, stopping mid-step to face me. "It's everyone who thinks they can bully you into giving up. They don't see what we're trying to build, they just see a threat." Her words cut through the noise in my head, reminding me that this wasn't just about me or the shop. It was about something much bigger. Evelyn's determination reignited my own, and I resolved that no amount of intimidation would derail what we were building. Not for Derek, not for anyone. They just see a threat, Evelyn said, frustration simmering in her voice. Then let them see it, I replied firmly. I'm not giving up, not on this shop, not on these kids, and not on what we've built. Evelyn stopped pacing and turned to me, her expression softening. You really believe in this, don't you? I do, I said, meeting her gaze. And I'm not backing down. Her determination seemed to grow in response. Over the following weeks, Evelyn began organizing community meetings, inviting local leaders and neighbors to discuss ways to improve the neighborhood. Her passion was infectious, and soon some of the skeptics began to see the bigger picture. But not everyone was on board. Derek and his crew escalated their harassment. They slashed tires on cars parked outside the shop, spread vicious rumors, and one night they even hurled a brick through the front window of my house. Evelyn was furious. We need to involve the police, she insisted. That'll just make things worse, I argued, the thought of escalating tensions weighing heavily on me. And doing nothing will let them think they can get away with it, she countered. We eventually compromised. Evelyn hired private security for both the shop and my house, while I started keeping a closer eye on everything. It felt like a temporary fix, a bandage on a wound that might never fully heal, but it was enough to keep things from spiraling out of control, for now. Despite the challenges, the shop continued to thrive. The training program expanded, and we partnered with local businesses to offer apprenticeships for the kids. Watching them grow, seeing their pride as they mastered new skills, was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. But beneath the surface, I could feel the pressure building. Derek wasn't going to give up, and I knew it was only a matter of time before something big happened. That moment came one fateful night. It was late, and the shop was dark except for the faint glow of my work light. I was finishing up a repair when I heard the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. The sound made my blood run cold. I grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, my heart pounding as I scanned the lot. There, by the shattered front window, stood Derek, a crowbar in hand and anger etched across his face. It was clear, this wasn't going to end without a fight. It was late, and the shop was nearly silent except for the hum of my tools as I finished up a repair. Then the sharp sound of breaking glass shattered the stillness. My heart leapt as I rushed outside, dread pooling in my chest. The front window was destroyed, shards glinting under the streetlights. Standing there, crowbar in hand, was Derek, his face twisted with rage. This ends now, he growled, stepping forward with menace. Adrenaline surged, and before I had time to think, we were face to face. You've been a thorn in my side for too long, Derek spat, his voice dripping with venom. It's time someone put you in your place. You don't scare me, I replied, keeping my voice steady even as fear bubbled beneath the surface. Derek didn't wait for a response. He swung the crowbar, but I dodged just in time, the weapon narrowly missing me. What followed was pure chaos, a blur of grappling and trading blows, neither of us holding back. The fight felt endless until the wail of sirens broke through the haze. Red and blue lights flooded the street as the police arrived, pulling Derek off me before he could take another swing. The officers quickly cuffed him and hauled him away, leaving me bruised, battered, and utterly drained. Evelyn showed up at the station to pick me up, her concern evident in the way her eyes searched my face as I slid into the passenger seat. This has to stop, she said firmly as we drove home, her hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. It will, I promised, though the words felt hollow even to me. Derek's out of the picture now. He won't bother us anymore. Evelyn didn't reply immediately, but her silence spoke volumes. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over, that the tension brewing beneath the surface hadn't been resolved but merely postponed. With Derek gone, the immediate danger might have passed, but the deeper battle, the one for the future of the shop, the kids, and the community, was far from finished. With Derek gone, things started to settle down, at least on the surface. The shop flourished, the kids thrived in their training, and the community began to rally around us. But the nagging sense of unease never completely left me. I had learned the hard way that success often comes with a price, and I couldn't shake the feeling that another storm might be waiting just beyond the horizon. Evelyn, however, remained unwavering in her optimism. She poured herself into the project with tireless dedication, her passion reigniting my own. One day, as we stood in the shop watching the kids work, she turned to me with a smile that carried both pride and hope. "This is what it's all about, Marcus," she said softly. "Giving people hope, a chance to build something better." Her words hit me, grounding me in a way nothing else could. They reminded me of why I had started this journey in the first place. As the weeks turned into months, the shop evolved into something far greater than just a business. It became a beacon, a symbol of resilience and hope for the entire community. Evelyn and I worked tirelessly side by side to ensure its success. And slowly but surely, the whispers of doubt and resentment began to fade away. In the end, this journey wasn't just about fixing cars or building a business. It was about proving that, even in the face of adversity, change is possible. Evelyn's vision didn't just transform the shop. It transformed the lives of everyone it touched, including mine. Looking around at the thriving community we had built together, I realized that all the struggles, the sacrifices, and the hard work had been worth it. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was meant to be. That evening, as the soft glow of streetlights stretched over the newly renovated auto shop, Marcus sat on the steps, a cup of hot coffee warming his hands. Evelyn, as usual, appeared quietly beside him, her long coat draping her elegant figure. Neither spoke, letting the soothing sounds of the quiet night fill the space around them. "Have you ever imagined yourself here in a moment like this?" Evelyn's voice broke the silence, warm and melodic, like a familiar tune. Marcus smiled, a hint of shyness in his eyes but also a deep warmth. "Never. But if you're asking if I'd want this, the answer is yes." She turned to him, her deep gaze seeming to search for something within his soul. "Marcus, I didn't just invest in this shop. I believe in you, who you are and the values you stand for." Marcus's heart tightened at the sincerity in her words. He didn't know how to respond. He was used to criticism and doubt, but Evelyn was an exception. She made him feel valuable, as though he truly deserved all the good things in life. "Evelyn, Marcus faltered, his hands unconsciously gripping the coffee cup. "Don't say anything," she said gently, placing her hand over his, a faint smile on her lips. "Let this moment speak for itself." That night, under a star-filled sky, they sat side by side, the distance between them no longer a barrier. Between them was something new, fragile yet full of promise, as if everything was just beginning. Will their story end in a profound and happy love, or will it leave a bittersweet, lingering note of regret? What ending do you hope for them? Do you love the story of Marcus and Evelyn? Subscribe to Soul Deep Stories now to enjoy more heartfelt and touching stories that resonate deeply. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to hit like to support us and leave a comment to share your thoughts. How would you like this story to end? Let us know. Join us in creating more emotional journeys. Red Heart. In life, as long as you have determination, perseverance, and unwavering faith, I truly believe that anything is possible, and good fortune will always find its way to kind-hearted people. Thank you for listening to today's story, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.